welcome to the Valley of Death, where everything is spooky, but we keep things light. Oh man, am I underdressed? I'm sorry, I'm not really professionally dressed for this video, but my normal outfit that I use for the Valley of Death is in the dry cleaners right now, so I'm sorry. But, I mean, this is a very special season, so I should actually be wearing something else.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine.
As you can see, I'm definitely ready for the month of October. Yes, this is still September, but tomorrow's October, so I don't care. We're getting this Halloween-a-thon started! Now this year's going to be a little bit different, as we're going to be mainly focusing on a certain aspect of cinema, the cinematic universe. Cinematic universes nowadays are really not that much of a big thing. Heck, every studio is trying to make a cinematic universe. But back in the day, before Marvel started this whole big shebang, it really was kind of an oddity. The fact of other movies crossing over with other movies, although did happen quite a lot, it was a very, very rare thing. Now the question is, who started the cinematic universe? And a lot of people would probably point towards Marvel for a very good reason. They're the ones who popularized the idea of the cinematic universe, as well as gave it a lot of good grounded quality and a lot of good cohesiveness when it came to connecting everything. However, they are not the first cinematic universe. Oh, no. We, ladies and gentlemen, are going to go all the way back to the 1940s and 50s. As the very first cinematic universe was actually the Universal Monsters. Universal Studios monster movies are what really popularized the whole idea of horror and monsters in cinema. Now granted, there were plenty of other monster movies, so to speak, around this time, but Universal Studios really nailed the whole aspect of gothic scenery, monsters, tragic stories, and honestly a really great lesson to learn from a good portion of these movies while adding in a lot of adventure and mystery to them. Now a lot of people would say that the Universal Monsters are incredibly outdated, but I would highly disagree. These movies still stand as incredible works of art, and I really recommend for you to go ahead and see them if you haven't already. Now I wish that these were the movies I was actually reviewing this October, but let's go ahead and talk about Universal Studios' remakes of their monster movies. Universal Studios have tried time and time again to remake their monster movies, with really the only success the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies, which is quite understandable. Although they were very cheesy, they were filled with adventure, a few little scares here and there, but overall they were just cheesy fun, almost reminiscent of Indiana Jones. And now we go ahead and cut to the year 2010, where they tried to bring back one of their greatest monsters of all time back to cinema, and that is the Wolfman. The remake of the Wolfman is a very odd movie. A lot of me actually does enjoy many aspects of it, but it just has so many problems, especially when you compare it to the original. The movie was directed by Joe Johnston, and to be completely honest, I am really shocked at how this movie turned out, since he actually really pumped out at least relatively good quality movies, along with, well, shit. Although definitely not an awful director, his movies are definitely not something I would like to go ahead and call subtle. I do enjoy a lot of his work, but with a movie like The Wolfman, I would argue you really needed a more artistic director than Joe Johnston. This movie was lambasted by critics and fans of the original movie as being just an overly dark, droll movie with not really a lot of substance, but really good effects. Just to let everyone know, I am going to be reviewing the director's cut of this movie, as I do want to try and get the full vision of what the director originally intended for the movie. Plus, there are some interesting scenes I actually want to talk about that are in this version compared to the original. So, yeah, this is going to be a fun ride, guys. So, let's get the cinematic universes of this Halloween-a-thon started. This is 2010's The Wolfman. The movie opens up with the classic logo of Universal Studios, Very nice touch, by the way. As we open up with the classic poem from the original movie.
Even a man who is pure of heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf's bane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Now, personally, I love this poem. I actually quote it in my sleep. But the thing is that this poem was actually a very major plot point in the original movie. Here, it's simply just plastered at the beginning to remind you, hey, you remember this poem, right? It was in the original movie. No other werewolf movies have this poem. After the nostalgia trip, we see a man walking alone in the woods. Basically, the opening to every single horror movie ever. Before we continue, I really want to point out the scenery in this movie. It is absolutely gorgeous and dripping with creepy, gothic scenery, which really sets the tone. With the moon, the brown leaves, fog, and creepy trees, it is perfectly creepy and fitting. With that said, I do have a little bit of an argument as to why this works against the movie later on as we get deeper into the movie. Our lonely man is then attacked by a werewolf. Okay, I've never actually been attacked by a wild animal before, but I'm pretty sure if my intestines were hanging out and my face was looking like a jigsaw puzzle, I wouldn't be running. I would simply be lying on the ground saying, God, please take me now. With a final bite, we get the title card. Okay, well, honestly, not too bad. I mean, it was an overall fun, spooky, pretty dang violent opening to this movie, which cannot be said about the rest of this movie. We finally meet our lead, Lawrence Talbot, played by Benicio del Toro. Now, Benicio del Toro, I'd argue, was the perfect choice for Lawrence. Not only is he a great actor who can bring a wide range of charm and sadness that the role requires, but he also looks so much like the great Lon Chaney Jr., the man who originally played the Wolfman. However, I don't know if it was his choice or the director's, but Lawrence is such a bloody wet blanket. When we meet Lawrence in the original, he has charm, a complicated backstory, and oh god, his smile could melt everyone. Which is why him turning into the Wolfman is so tragic. Here, he's either a complete douche or so freaking down you honestly really don't like him.
Would you help us?
I am under contract for the next 30 performances.
It's about your father. I know how you feel.
Do you?
We then meet Gwen Conliffe, played by Emily Blunt. Don't worry, Emily, you will be in much better horror movies after this one. She is the fiancée to Lawrence's brother, the man who was attacked at the beginning of the movie by the werewolf.
Benjamin is missing. From Blackmore, he's gone.
Lawrence tells her to piss off, only to leave almost immediately to help in the search for his brother. Oh man, that was a complete turnaround. While on the way, he meets a man played by Max von Sydow.
My mother, we are gathering grapes in her father's vineyard. It is my Garden of Eden.
He tells Lawrence to take his cane because... reasons. Only for Lawrence to decline. And the old man leaves it anyway. What was the point of that scene? This guy doesn't even show up in the rest of the movie, so what was the point of all this? This scene was actually cut from the theatrical release, which, to be completely honest, I think was the far better choice, but hey, we need to explain somehow how he got the silver cane, because... well, the silver cane is a really important thing in the original, so... here's the silver cane! Lawrence makes it home to meet his father, John Talbot, played by the great Anthony Hopkins, who clearly is excited to see his son back.
Lo and behold, the prodigal son returns. I hope you're not expecting a fatted calf.
Now, this is the part that really pains me about this movie. Del Toro and Hopkins are incredibly dull in this movie. Both Del Toro and Hopkins are incredible actors who have been able to really put on so many amazing performances. Heck, Hopkins made another incredible horror movie with Silence of the Lambs, so why isn't he just more charismatic in this movie? Everyone seems so dang uncomfortable or creepy, which really takes away from everything terrible that happens later. Which also leads into the scenery. I get this is a gothic looking movie, but to be honest, they kinda went overboard with how the whole movie looks. To the point where, just like the actors, it just looks too depressing. Look, I know the original Wolfman was supposed to be an allegory for mental health, particularly depression and PTSD. However, you guys went way way too overboard with that whole theme, because holy crap, this movie is just downright depressing. After that ridiculously bright, heartwarming welcome, Lawrence decides to go see his brother's body. I don't know what it is, but I find it slightly amusing that the brother's body was just kept in a butcher's shop. After he sees his brother not looking his best, he goes to get plastered. I can think of worse reasons to get drunk. While he's at the pub, everyone is discussing what exactly could be committing the murders.
Whatever did it was big, had claws, and didn't mind a load of buckshot. My pa went home and melted down my ma's wedding spoons and cast silver bullets on them.
He thought it was a werewolf.
Something else I have a problem with this movie is, although it's visually appealing in a gothic setting, and there are some honestly pretty decent set pieces as the movie does eventually go along, this movie isn't scary. We already know what killed the brother, and on top of that, people seem to know that werewolves could be a thing, even if they are probably more myth than anything else. But in the original, although werewolves are mentioned, they really do come off as nothing but superstition. Heck, they don't have actual wolves where they live. It's so shocking when someone actually gets killed by a wolf later in the movie. The other thing is, we don't even see a proper werewolf until Lawrence turns into the Wolfman. All of the lack of tension builds up to that moment when the first werewolf attacks, and eventually when Lawrence turns into the Wolfman. This movie is so dark, depressing, and tense that honestly it numbs us to any amount of fear or tension that does eventually come in the movie. Not to mention, we already know the brother got killed by a werewolf! After a rather uncomfortable dinner, Lawrence decides to take a trip down memory lane through weird dissolve effects to show us his mother committed suicide. As always, pleasant. Gwen leaves and Lawrence goes off to the gypsies to find answers as his brother had dealings with them.
Her caravan shows up, 3 men are killed. I don't think it's a coincidence.
There is no coincidence, only fate, but she plays a hidden hand.
Tell me about my brother.
However, the villagers also arrive, and immediately things go to hell. Not because of them, but because of the werewolf. Alright, now we're talking. We're getting a monster carnage scene. Which, to be honest, this one kind of comes off as dull as the first monster scene. It's more funny than anything else because of all the extras and their hilarious reactions. Lawrence chases down the werewolf, only to get bitten. The gypsies try to help him, however they discuss that he's been cursed.
Mulți vor suferi de cauza asta.
Lawrence is taken back home, where we have a sick montage with hallucinations galore.
Who wrote the precious?
Oh man, I love sick montages! Okay, what was that? The first jump scare was weird, but at least it was kinda creepy. The second one is clearly lazy and just a really dumb attempt to scare you. It literally looks like one of those screen things that pops up during a TV show to tell you the next program. But bigger! Gwen is back to take care of Lawrence, and we get this, to be honest, unusual scene between Gwen and John Talbot. What the hell is this? Is this supposed to be scary? Intimidating? All I can see is just a ridiculous, awkward, hilarious Anthony Hopkins staring down Emily Blunt while eating an apple like an asshole. Lawrence turns out to be perfectly healed to the point where there is basically no wound and people start getting suspicious to the point where we are now introduced to our favorite elf lord, Hugo Weaving, playing Francis Aberline, who is loosely based off of Frederick Aberline, who was prominent in the Jack the Ripper case. Aberline questions Lawrence on the night of his attack and definitely suggests that maybe there's more to Lawrence than what he's leading on.
Well, the savagery of the attack would suggest the action of an animal, or a lunatic, perhaps. Someone with a history of mental disturbance. She's spent time inside an asylum.
And of course, how does Lawrence reply to this? By being a dick.
You're clearly aware of my personal history, as I believe I am aware of yours. Weren't you in charge of the Ripper case a couple years back?
I personally don't really get the inclusion of Aberline. He wasn't in the original movie, although there was some kind of inspector in the original movie. He was really far removed, but with getting such a big actor like Hugo Weaving and kind of bringing a little bit more attention to who he is, you'd think that he's going to be a lot more important, which he's not. The most important thing that even happens to this character is at the end of the movie. Of course, more people show up because they are suspicious of Lawrence, and they try to take him in.
Sorry, Colonel. I meant to shoot you.
Oh, trust me, I believe it. Lawrence sends Gwen away, believing that if she were to stay, that she might get hurt.
You have to leave. Please pack your things.
Now, I understand why Lawrence didn't do this earlier, because, well, this is such a welcoming town, a welcoming house, and oh my gosh, John Talbot is such a wonderful human being and so welcoming and kind that I understand why no one would want to leave this house. As the town prepares for the night of the full moon, Lawrence rushes out to find where his father is heading off to in the middle of the night, only to find out a terrible truth.
I'm dead all the same. Look into my eyes. You see, I am quite dead.
Can't you hear the wolves, Lawrence? Turns out that John Talbot was the werewolf all along.
The beast will have its day. The beast will out.
To be honest, not really that surprising. And then we get a pretty awesome transformation scene, and yeah, it might not be the best werewolf transformation scene in werewolf cinematic history, but it is honestly pretty dang good. And finally we get the title character himself, the Wolfman. Another monster rampage scene happens, and this one's honestly really dang good. I just love how full-on beast mode we get to see the Wolfman in, and honestly, all the carnage that he's capable of compared to the original. This is kind of what I wanted in my updated Wolfman movie, just with a better plot. After pulling a Jason Voorhees, the next morning, Lawrence is arrested and sent to an asylum, where we get yet another freaking montage.
I hope this won't impede your return to the stage.
Alas, poor Yorick.
Lawrence, wake up.
How many montages are we gonna get in this movie? John reveals to Lawrence he got the curse, and it turns out he's the one who killed his mother all along. Much shock, said no one. Also, he has the hots for Gwen?
Then she came, didn't she? Hot and burning like the face of the moon. Your brother away from me, and they would have both vanished into the night. Then, you understand, had come to tell me that he was quite resolute in his decision to leave Talbot Hall for good and to take Gwen away from me.
Where did that come from? He was always creepy around her for sure, but that's not character development. That's literally just an old guy being weird, creepy, and awkward. A scientist puts Lawrence on a scientific experiment to a group of other scientists to show that Lawrence's fears of the moon are not founded and that he's not actually a werewolf.
You will not become a werewolf any more than I will sprout wings and fly out of that window.
I'm calling it now. He's gonna get thrown out that window. Yep.
Tonight I will kill all of you. I will kill all of you!
Of course, he turns into a werewolf and reenacts a werewolf in London. Once again, we get, honestly, another pretty dang awesome monster rampage scene. And the sad thing is that these are the best parts of the movie, by far. I just love the amount of chaos and destruction this Wolfman brings to the screen. the cool superhero moment in superhero movies, but with monsters. And blood and gore. Dang, I'm a sick individual. But dang, it does get these moments right in so many ways. If the story was better, this would simply be icing on this dark, hairy cake. Lawrence goes to Gwen to warn her about his father and himself.
I am what they say I am. And so is my father.
Hey, he's Catholic! Lawrence then weirdly professes his love to Gwen with dialogue that George Lucas would be proud of.
I would have given anything I own to have known you in another life.
Only for Inspector Elrond to show up and ruin the fun.
Tolbert!
Well, that's foreshadowing for you. Once again, we get another montage of everyone traveling places where Gwen tries to find out how to destroy the curse.
Will you condemn him, or will you set him free?
I can't do that. He's still there. I know he is. I know I can save him.
Lawrence finally arrives back home to prepare for the showdown with Daddy.
I will arise and go to my father, and I will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee. And lo and behold, there he stands, the prodigal son, for he is returned.
Look, I get they're doing this weird twist on the whole prodigal son, you know, sins of the father kind of thing with this movie, but it is ridiculously heavy-handed. To the point I feel like I'm getting a concussion from how much they're beating me over the head with it. Father and son fight to the death, and did anyone ask for werewolf Anthony Hopkins to rip his shirt off like a pro wrestler? And say it with me now, we get another pretty awesome monster fight scene. Lawrence kills his father and is then confronted by Gwen and Chief Inspector Elrond. To the shock of no one, he gets bit. Comeuppance, everybody! Gwen runs into the forest, of course, a very smart idea, where she is cornered by the Wolfman himself, and then we kind of get this... I don't really know what to call it. It's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast moment, but, well, the Beast would murder you.
It's Gwen. It's Gwen. Please.
And with this, we get a small glimmer of hope that he might turn back into a human, and oh look, oh well, he's not turning into a human. He's gone, full-on werewolf, gonna kill everybody. Gwen shoots him with a silver bullet, and then he dies.
It had to be this way.
It was Beauty killed the beast.
And then it kind of ends on this cliffhanger that is definitely alluding to the whole fact that, well, Chief Inspector Elrond was bitten, so we're gonna get a Wolfman sequel? Oh look, we're not getting a Wolfman sequel. This movie was really hard for me to hate, and the thing is that there are so many moments about this movie I do legitimately enjoy. I think all the werewolf scenes in this movie are absolutely phenomenal. It is dripping with gorgeous gothic scenery, and I do genuinely like some of the elements that Benicio del Toro does bring to the role. However, it's just such a dark, droll, depressing movie. It has absolutely no heart, no charm, and above all, I literally hate almost every single character in this movie. The original Wolfman really brought forth a lot of interesting ideas when it came to the idea of artistically portraying ideas of mental health. This movie, it's just a monster flick, and that's the best I can say about it. And that's kind of why I like it. It's just a simple monster movie. Nothing wrong with that. But when we're talking about the Wolfman, you really need to amp up your artistic integrity when it comes to portraying this honestly complex character. This is honestly a very poor start to Universal Studios trying to remake their classic monsters, and honestly, All it's going to do is make you howl at the moon in agonizing pain, wishing for the past. Alright, we got this thing started. Make sure you guys tune in on Friday as we're going to go ahead and dive into Dracula Untold, the very first example of Universal Studios trying to actually start their cinematic universe. This has been the Valley of Death, where everything is spooky, but we keep things light. I'll see you guys on Friday. Hi everyone, I just want to thank you so much for watching the video, and I also want to give a shout out to Madison at the $50 tier, and on top of that, I would also like to give a shout out to the charity organization of her choice, NORD. NORD is the National Organization for Rare Disorders, an American non-profit organization aiming to provide support for individuals with rare diseases by advocating and funding research, education, and networking among service providers. NORD's operations include funding research on treatment and cures for rare diseases, lobbying for legislation to benefit the rare diseases community, spreading information about rare diseases, and helping individuals with rare diseases afford medication and treatment. I do highly recommend that you guys take a look into this organization, as they have a ton of information about rare diseases and illnesses that the public kind of doesn't really know that much about. And on top of that, it is best to really educate yourself about a lot of these rare diseases, because there are so many people out there that just because they have these rare symptoms or diseases or whatever, people sometimes don't even believe that they're honestly sick or that they have, problems and everything. And so it's really good to look into organizations like these, because they help educate you when it comes to the things that people are suffering with today. If you go over to the Get Involved tab, you'll be able to donate, learn more about the organization and the illnesses that they are combating, and even get involved with spreading the word of what NORD does. If you do want to get involved with this in any way whatsoever, such as donating or just educating yourself or whatever, go to rarediseases.org. Thank you so much for listening and for, just watching the video in general, and I hope that you all have a very spooky October. Thank you so much. God bless.